Okay, good Shabbos. Right, have you guys ever had that moment in life where your life really changes? You get this new breath of fresh air into your life. You discover something for the first time. It's almost as if you've unlocked a life hack where life is just suddenly, all of a sudden, easy and open for you, and you get to experience new things that you never knew existed before. Might be a new technology that you discovered, AI. I suddenly became a graphic designer when I had the Purim show over here as well. Out of the blue, one week I didn't know what I was doing when it came to artwork. The next week I had a whole beautiful slideshow. When you guys first got your driver's license and you could now explore the world and see what the world has to offer for you. When you got your first paycheck and you can go buy yourself your own chappies. Those moments in life are very special. And I had one of those moments just this very week. I discovered a shop that sells plus size clothing. My life has changed. My life is now complete. I can't explain to you how happy I am. I'm wearing one of the shirts today and I'm floating around like a butterfly. I've got space, I'm comfortable, my buttons are not getting ready to shoot someone in the eye. I can stand here in comfort. It's really, my mind has been opened. I've had a wonderful, wonderful experience. And it's so nice because, I'm not like at the point where my size clothes are not in regular shops, but I'm just teetering on the edge. So it's difficult to find my size. And I walk into this shop and I decide, let me try some of the stuff. And for the first time in my life, I'm the smallest size in the store again. Oh, it's beautiful. A challenge. Challenge accepted. I've forgotten how to measure the sizes of pants. I usually just worked with how many X's are in the size. But I see these pants with a bunch of numbers and I don't have a clue what number I am. So I decided, let me just pick the first pants I can get and let me go try it on in the fitting room. I open this pants and I can fit in the one leg. I'm standing there like a matador with a bull. And I'm thinking to myself, Baruch Hashem, I've made it to life. I now have meaning again. And I was thinking, I can actually take one of these pants to cover the entire Mishkan. So I'm standing there in the changing room with all these clothes that I'm trying on, and I'm thinking about the parasha, because this week's parasha, Moshe does an accounting of all the stuff we use in the Mishkan, and the clothing for the high priest as well. And I'm wondering to myself, what size was the high priest's clothing? Was it a one-size-fit-all? And what size was Moshe? Take a guess. Anyone want to guess? Was Moshe a chubby hubby like me? Or was Moshe a skinny billing? Kidding? What do you guys think?
Do you see how much movement that man did?
Listen, you're not allowed to lie, especially on Shabbat.
You're skinny.
You think Moshe was skinny?
Yeah, he walked a lot.
He walked a lot. He went up and down the mountain over and over again. But my friends, some of us have what we call a slow metabolism. Right? Some of us are just big bone.
He didn't eat for 40 days.
For 40 days he didn't eat. So he was skinny for when he came back, maybe. Yeah. So listen to this, guys. The Midrash tells us Moshe had a double chin. You remember old, what's that movie, Tevya, Fiddler on the Roof? If I were a rich man, then I'd have a wife with a proper double chin, he says, right? So the Midrash tells us Moshe had a double chin and he had some thickled thighs as well. Can you believe that? Listen to this. This is from the Midrash Rabbah, Exodus Rabbah 51 verse 6. Alright, so some scoffers came up to him and started accusing him of things. And they said to him, Rav Chama says, they would say to Moshe, look at the fat double chin on the neck of the son of Amram. How fat he is and how thick his thighs are. And this guy's friend would respond, of course, one who's in charge of the construction of the tabernacle. Don't you expect him to be wealthy? We gave him all our donations. When Moshe heard this, he said to them, by your life, as soon as this tabernacle is completed, I will give you a detailed accounting of every single expense. I did not eat one crumb of the holy bread. As soon as the tabernacle was completed, Moshe said to them, come, let's make an accounting, which is this week's parasha, of its expenditures. This is the meaning of the first verse in this week's parasha. Ele Pekudei HaMishkan. These are the accountings of the tabernacle, the reckonings that Moses promised to make to prove his honesty and his integrity. So apparently, Moshe and me are in the same size group. Okay, how do you like that? Alright, so that's where our parasha gets its name from. Moshe having to defend himself against fat shaming. That's the name of this week's parashat, Pekudei. Now, notice they didn't call him by his name, Moshe. They said, look how fat the son of Amram has come and gotten. Why do they call him the son of Amram specifically? Obviously, that's his father's name, Amram, Moshe ben Amram. But it's because when it comes to the tabernacle and the functioning of the tabernacle, who else got the jobs in the tabernacle? Family. It was a family business running the tabernacle. So he gave the priesthood to his brother Aaron and his sons, and he told them of Israel, you guys must donate the 10th of all your tithing to them and feed them for the rest of your life. And people said, wait a minute, he's doing that with his family members. Not only that, who was in charge of building the Mishkan? Bezalel, his nephew. Miriam's grandson, right? Bezalel. So everything was kept in the family. It was, what do we call it in South Africa? No, man, there's a big word for it to be used. Not the mafia, nepotism, cadre deployment. There's one. There's names we use for it in South Africa. So it seems as if that's what Moshe is doing. So they're accusing Moshe of doing this, saying, the son of Amram, look how fat and chubby he has gotten. Now, obviously, we don't believe that today, that Moshe did that, right? Because this is the same Moshe about whom Hashem himself says in the book of Numbers, he is different from all the others. In my house, he alone is trustworthy. That's what Hashem says about Moshe. So we've got the word from Hashem that Moshe would never go and steal even a cent or a crumb from the tabernacle itself. And in fact, to fix this problem with these guys that came and made this false accusation against Moshe, till this very day, every year on the festival of Sukkot, we sing a song to correct this false accusation and this Lashon Hara that these guys hurled at Moshe. We sing about the son of Amram. Do you guys remember when we're here on Sukkot, we're circling the bima one time each day, all the way up to 7 times, right? And as we're circling it on Simchat Torah, we do the big dancing. Towards the end, we sing a song called Mipiel. Mipiel, Mipiel, Yizvorach, Israel. Mipiel, Mipiel, Yizvorach, Israel. From God's mouth shall Israel be blessed. From God's mouth shall Israel be blessed. Right, that's when I also lose the most kilograms in a year, dancing around the bima here. Right, and in that song we say, there is none so powerful as our God, and none so blessed as the son of Amram. Hey! Remember that song? So there we specifically call Moshe by the name Amram. And then we say, there is no glory like that of the Torah, and none who study it quite like Israel. Hey, Mipiel, Yizvorach, that song. So we specifically in that song, over and over again, in each verse, call Moshe by the name, the son of Amram, to try and make up for this Lashon Hara that we had over here when the tabernacle was completed. Right, so we try and rectify the mistake that those guys made back then. So these guys were clearly scoffers. They weren't just respectable people. So if you had to guess who these guys were, there are 2 famous characters we blame for everything. Our tradition tells us it was Datan and Aviram. They are the ones that came and said this about Moshe. And when the Midrash talks about them, it actually uses the word leitzan. They are a leitzan. What is that? Clowns. It says these guys are a bunch of clowns. And they're the ones who came up and said to Moshe, hey Moshe, do you look fat in those jeans? Yes, you do. Right. So these clowns are the ones that came and hurled this Lashon Hara at Moshe. So the Midrash comes along and explains to us in the very same Midrash that Moshe sat down and started taking an accounting of everything used in the tabernacle. And while he was counting, took out his abacus to see how many of each things he used. Right, or he was opening an Excel spreadsheet. We were in the building business before my parents retired. And I remember we did low-cost housing. And the only way you survive in low-cost housing is if you literally count every single screw and nail. I used to work with these spreadsheets that I think I could run the whole world and NASA on these things. The spreadsheets that we knew to the very last nail how many nails we use in every single of these low-cost houses that we built. That was the only way we could survive in low-cost housing, to build in bulk. So Moshe himself went and sat down and decided to do this thing as well. Right? So as Moshe was doing this, he was counting and looking at the gold, looking at the silver, and that's the beginning of our parasha. He lists all these things. And while he's counting these things, he realizes there's a problem. There's a discrepancy in the books. There's a missing 1,775 shekels. And he just told these guys, I'm going to sit down, give an accounting to you, and prove my innocence. And all of a sudden, he finds a missing 1,775 shekels. How many orders of Nando's is that? That's a lot. That's a lot of chicken. So as Moshe realizes there's the shorting, he starts doubting himself. Maybe what they said about my double chin is right. Maybe I shouldn't just be counting the tabernacle things. Maybe I should be counting my calories. And he started wondering about the things that these guys hurled at him. Then Hashem came to him. And the Midrash says this. I love the English translation. It says, Hashem came to him and enlightened him. Perfect choice of words, right? That's a perfect name for a diet pill or a weight loss injection. Enlighten yourself. By now, etc. Right? So Hashem came and enlightened him, and Hashem said to him, lift up your eyes and see. Which, by the way, those of you like me who have a double chin will know whenever someone's taking a photo of you, that's what you've got to do. You've got to lift up to hide your double chin, right? So Hashem says to Moshe, lift up your eyes and see. And what did he see? On the top of the bars and the beams around the tabernacle, we had these little hooks. These hooks were the things that held up the curtain that goes around the tabernacle. And Hashem said to him, those hooks are where you used the 1,775 shekels. And he found it. And it reminds me of, when you're too fat to have pants that tie in front of you, you have to wear these straps. Right? So these hooks work in the same way, holding up the curtain around the tabernacle. And he found them, and finally Moshe could balance the books, even if he couldn't balance on the scale. Right. Every time I climb on a scale, it says error 2. I don't know what's wrong with that. We get that thing calibrated. Or it says what? One at a time, please. So anyway. So Moshe was able to balance the books, and he was able to silence the clowns. Now, in this parasha, it also mentions Aaron's clothing, that Moshe had to give an account for all the gold and the materials used for making the holy vestments of the priests as well. He had to balance the books over there as well. But it doesn't tell us what size those clothes were, if they were plus-size outfit for Aaron. Aaron, I believe, was skinny, but the Midrash and the Talmud tells us he was extremely tall. He was like giant. He was tall to the point where he could actually light the menorah by himself, which is a very high menorah. He could just light it by himself, but he still used a step out of honor for the menorah. So Aaron definitely had this extra long clothing. But during the parasha where it tells us that, Moshe actually has to give an accounting for the clothing as well. Now there's something very interesting that our sages say about the high priest's clothing. Our sages tell us that the clothing themselves provide atonement for Israel. The clothing themselves. Every single one of those elements of clothing provide atonement for something else. So the high priest had 8 different vestments that he would wear, right? And each one atoned for something. So they give us proof text for each of them, and they base this upon the idea that next week's parasha, when we start Vayikra, Leviticus, chapter 1 through 7 is all about the sacrifices and the offerings that provide atonement. And then what's right next to it? Clothing of Aaron once again. So the sages ask, why is the clothing of Aaron juxtaposed right next to the offerings and the atonement? Because the clothing themselves provide atonement for us. So the head covering that Aaron would wear, that provides for the sins of our thoughts. Right? The pants that he would wear, that atones for our sexual sins, etc., etc. And I'm not going to go into all of them today. I want to go to one of them today and see what we can learn from that. The main one, the one that is most recognizable, the outer robe, the me'il that Aaron would wear, that was dyed in the color of techeles. What color is techeles? It's techeles. Don't say blue, don't say anything, it's techeles, whatever techeles is. Either blue or purple, or last year we explained and we studied the idea that it might have been green. Remember emerald green? We spoke about how Esther's face, her skin color was actually green. That was last year's thing. So anyway, so it was the color of techeles, right? Now the thing about that is that according to that tradition, when we study the clothing of Aaron, it tells us that Aaron was the world's first hippie. Why? Because he was the first one to wear bell bottoms. At the bottom of the outfit of the high priest, he had these little bells, right? Bell pomegranate. Not real pomegranates, obviously, because they'll go fraught. It was like a knitted pomegranate thing, so that it could hit the bells and make a noise. Right, so when Moshe is recounting in this week's parasha Pekudei every single item that was used, he also had to recount every single bell that was put onto that me'il, onto that robe of the high priest. And what does the robe atone for? If the other things, every single one of the items atones for something, the robe, our sages tell us in the Talmud, like at Arachin 16a, the robe atones for the sin of Lashon Hara, evil speech, gossip, calling people fat. Why? Because Hashem said, let the item of clothing that produces sound, with the bells on the robe, come and atone for the act of evil sound, evil speech, the act of Lashon Hara. Hell's bells. Right. So, in the parasha, Moshe gives us an accounting even of those bells on the robe as well as the hooks, right? Now, we as disciples of Yeshua, we should see something very special in this, because we also have a responsibility. We're referred to collectively as the temple of Hashem as well, right? All of us are being built up together as a temple of God, meaning that we too should be able to be giving an accounting of ourselves. And specifically in this sense, as we're talking today about those bells and the clothing that Aaron would wear, we also need to give an accounting of what that represents, atonement for our speech, our evil speech. Because Yeshua left us with an extremely, extremely powerful saying about the accountability of our speech. In Matthew chapter 12, verse 36 and 37, listen to what Yeshua says to us. Moreover, I tell you this, on the day of judgment, people will have to give an account. Pekudei, it's this week's parashah. People will have to give account for every careless word they have ever spoken. That's scary. For by your own words you will be acquitted, and by your own words you will be condemned. On Judgment Day, there's going to be a minute of the meeting of everything you've ever said in this life, Yeshua tells us. And you will have to give an accounting for every single thing you said. That's why I tell so many jokes. Maybe we'll have a nice laughing session up there. But that is a seriously, seriously scary thought. How many times have you not said something stupid just by mistake? In your car, when there's no one else around you, just taxis. Hashem is going to call up those things you said and ask you to give an accounting for the things you said. Those evil thoughts you wished upon people on the road, in traffic, in the rain. This is extremely scary. Just like the items that Moshe accounts for in this week's parashah, our words should also be only used, exclusively used for the building of God's kingdom. Nothing else. You should not use one of the gifts Hashem has given you for anything else than building His kingdom. That is your purpose in life. Our Chazal, our sages tell us that our words have the power to build up entire worlds. And at the same time, our words have the power to destroy entire worlds. If we use our words like those clowns then from the Midrash to spread cynicism and gossip, we will have to give an accounting for it on Judgment Day. When you want to stand there on Yom Kippur before Hashem and say, look how clean I am, I look like an angel. Hashem's going to say, what about this thing you said about your mother-in-law back in 1999? It's going to be extremely scary. We must be scrupulous to guard our tongue from evil speech. Now, one way that we can do this is to take an accounting of your words on a daily basis. We've got a practice called Cheshbon HaNefesh, which means the accounting of the soul. Every night when you go to bed, before you put your head on the pillow, get out a book or something and ask yourself, do a review of your day. Give yourself a rating out of 10. How well did I do today? How did I use my words today? Did I speak words that build up Hashem's kingdom, or did I speak words that break it down? And if we can take an accounting on a daily basis by doing this Cheshbon HaNefesh, I think we're going to learn a very serious lesson. And when we get to that day, when it comes to Judgment Day, as Yeshua says, and we have to give an accounting of our words, we'll be a lot happier that we did this during our life before it was too late. So please take that upon yourselves. So we learned this week from Moshe's double chin that we too should take an account not only of the food that goes in our mouth, but of every word that comes out of our mouth as well. Yeshua told us it's not only what goes in that defiles a person, but what comes out that also defiles a person. Why? Because Hashem will ask us to give an accounting of it on that Judgment Day. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.